Welcome to the Careering Podcast, a collection of rants and reckons on all things career, hosted by author and creator of Careering 9, Melissa Davies, and her partner in crime, Kelsey Ingalls. If you're brave enough, take a seat, settle in and listen as we tackle difficult career and workplace issues. Sometimes we'll be wrong, sometimes we'll be right, but we will deliver it with confidence and a touch of colourful language, so it will at least be entertaining.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Careering Podcast. I am your co-host Kelsey, and I'm here with Melissa, the author and creator of Careering 9. How are you going, Melissa?
I am fabulous. How are you?
I am doing all right this week. I'm all right. What sort of theme have you got going on this week?
This one's reflecting some time spent with my super cute nieces and nephew.
Oh, I love them.
Yeah, they are ridiculously cute and such good kids. Except for three little humans wedged in the back seat of your car. The conversation gets loud, and there was a really funny moment where the two girls were trying to tell me a story and they had different takes on it. And they kept getting louder and louder and going, no, this is what happened. No, this is what happened. And typical me, had to use it as a leadership moment and explain. And plus I could hear the conversation. I could tell they were both right. They were talking about different parts of the situation. And if either of them had taken a breath and listened to the other, they would have figured out they weren't disagreeing, but they were so busy yelling no at each other.
So how did we handle this teachable moment?
Well, what we did is ask them to listen, and I explained that I think they were both right and they were trying to share different perspectives about different parts of the context and encourage them to be brave when they hear someone saying no to them. Be the brave one that says, well, can you talk me through what your experience of this is or what you're saying? Just give them space to talk.
And how did that go down?
Well, they did it because they loved the auntie.
Yeah, okay, fair. You've got a weird hold over those children. Melissa has somehow convinced three small humans to, every time they say please for something, they don't just say please, they say please, Auntie Liz, darling.
And not just the three small humans, the 18-year-old and, the 19 and 17-year-old niece and nephew were also trained the same way.
Genius.
Yes.
Absolute bloody genius.
I love it. It's great. And what about for you, Kels? What's been happening in your world? What's the theme?
I'm feeling very creative. Very just want to paint things. I want to crochet the things. I want to write the things, read the things. Just want to do lots of creative things at the moment. I have done none of the creative things. I want to, though.
You have done a creative thing. I have a beautiful new crocheted scarf, snood. What was it called?
Yes. Snood. Yeah.
Is it that?
That's a weird word, but yeah, snood. It's a great way to derail an entire podcast by bringing up the word snood.
Is it even the right word?
I think it is. Well, it's definitely not snoodle. But before we completely derail ourselves with the word snoodle, I think I am on a buzz of, wanting to make things and be a little bit more creative. And I guess doing this podcast is maybe a creative thing as well. I don't know. I think maybe it's autumn. Maybe I'm leave me in my house with my red wine and my paints and just leave me be. I want to be an artist. At some point, I'm going to emerge in a sparkly head wrap and a muumuu, and I'm going to be absolutely fucking fabulous. And that's my vibe for the week.
It's a great vibe. I really like that vibe.
Well, this week we are going to talk about something a little less serious. I have posed a question that I feel like Melissa and I should discuss. And that question this week is, should you sleep with your colleagues? Melissa, thoughts, reckons, should you?
Well, I don't know if we're going to shit on people for this one. I think we'll let everyone make up their own minds. I think there's no definitive answer, no correct answer here, because every situation's different and every workplace is different. One of the things I find really interesting is in today's workplaces, we've got dating apps. So...
oh, yeah, there's nothing more uncomfortable than a colleague coming up on your Tinder.
Yeah, right? Or your boss, or the guy we used to work with. one guy we used to work with really closely on a...
Oh, he came up and he had a totally different name. He had a fake name.
He was catfishing people.
And I was like, I sent the photo to Melissa and I was like, I'm pretty sure that's that person that we used to work with. And she was like, at 100% is. I was like, oh no, okay. I'm just going to walk away from that one. That's a definite swipe left.
Yeah. So that's a whole new vibe at work now. So when I was working in larger organisations, dating apps weren't as accessible or as common as they are now. So I think that brings a whole new element to it because especially like Tinder, which is very much designed for a hookup culture. So if you're both grown-ass adults and you work in the same place and you see each other on Tinder, I can't see why you wouldn't if you can handle it. If you can have a conversation about it, understand the boundaries and handle if it goes to custard.
Yeah, but I mean, you and I have both been previous users of a dating app and can barely have a normal conversation with people you meet on there, let alone someone that you work with.
Yeah, maybe we're the exception, not the rule. Maybe other people do better than us.
That's also very true. Yeah, I think it opens up a lot of questions around the implications on your career, your personal brand, your opportunities. I think it's a conversation that should be had because when you're in the moment and it's there and it's an opportunity and it's fun and it's a little bit dangerous, it's not necessarily the things that you're not thinking about the practical things, let's be fair. So I feel like it's a conversation that more of us should be having, especially as women in the workplace, and the impacts on a woman can often be very different to the impacts on a man.
Yeah.
Within the workplace. And so I think it's an important topic that women of all ages need to be openly discussing about the implications on them and the person that they're sleeping with at work as well.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting nuance piece too. And I want to hear your thoughts on having a relationship with someone at work versus hooking up and just having sex with. Because, the question was, should you sleep with one of your colleagues? And having a relationship with someone and therefore sleeping with them versus something casual or a hookup.
Yeah, work drink's gotten too far.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to. Like, everyone knows that story of the Christmas party, and here in Christchurch there was that one situation at the Carlton Hotel that if you don't know about it, Google it.
I do not know it, and I'm going to Google it.
So at the Carlton there was a group of people and they could see the office building across the road, and there was an intimate moment between a man and a woman with a full audience.
Oh no. Oh dear. It's hard because you don't often meet someone at work and go, I'm going to marry you. It always starts in a far more casual space, right? Because moving it from casual into a relationship, especially with a colleague, just adds so much more on top of it. And I mean, I'm not going to lie, I've seen quite a few of my friends go through both of those situations.
Haven't you actually married some of your friends?
Yeah, so the first wedding, so I'm a wedding celebrant. The first wedding that I ever did was for my two friends who met at work. And it was that casual situation to begin with. And it moved into not being casual to being a relationship. And they're now married and have a child. So, you don't necessarily go into it going, I'm going to have a relationship with my boss. It starts in that space where it's all new and there's a lot unsaid and it can get a little bit dicey sometimes and you have to be really careful.
How do you think they navigated some of that complexity?
Really good communication. Really, really good communication, and being very, very clear with each other on expectations and how the expectations of how they interacted at work, but expectations on how the relationship worked outside of work as well. And not to just fully out them, but
it's really hard not to say their names.
But But they would do sneaky things like she'd drop him off like a block away from work, so he'd walk into work at a different time that she'd arrive at work, so that they never got seen together. I'm pretty sure most of their colleagues had no idea what was going on.
Was there any company policies in place? Because that's the other thing, right? So
Yeah.
lots of companies do have policies that if you're having a relationship, which is loosely defined, with a colleague, you have to disclose it. So what about this situation?
I have no idea. I can't answer that question, but I think we can probably all speak for many small organisations in New Zealand where there just isn't a policy. There's no policy on like cybersecurity, let alone sleeping with a colleague. So, I mean, I know from a few people that have worked in bigger organisations in New Zealand that it was hard enough to get people to not sign up to their Tinder account with their work email address, let alone having a policy adhered to and actually like people knew about around relationships with each other, relationships with colleagues. But what about you? You've worked in some bigger organisations. What has it been like in those?
Yeah, Christmas parties definitely create stories.
It's alcohol, right?
Yeah, loose and low inhibitions. And interesting that you actually mentioned that about alcohol. I thought when I started making some notes for this topic, I was reflecting on my early days working for BOC, largely male-dominated organisation, and amazing culture, really good actually. Like I feel I can't speak highly enough about my time there. I don't know what it's like now, but my experiences were really good largely. And there was a couple of situations that really stand out for me and had shaped my relationship with alcohol at work, which I think no doubt shaped my relationship with hooking up at work because I was never drunk enough to lose all sensibilities in those work environments. And I remember working for BOC here in Christchurch, and I was probably 20, and I was one of the only females in the sort of sales and retail team. And we had a whole nother building which had accounts and finance, which was female dominated. And we had a really active social club. Everyone got on really, really well. And then one year at this Christmas party, one of the women in the accounts team got quite drunk. And when the workplace social function finished, we walked around to the local pub. And as we walked out the gates, she tripped and face planted. And her skirt flipped up and exposed her fluoro G-string to the whole company. And her reputation from that point on that became all she was known for. It became this gossipy thing. And I'm thinking, so if you face plant in the gutter and everyone sees your butt and no one can stop talking about it, imagine what would happen if people knew that you were hooking up with someone. It just really made it black and white for me that
as a young woman,
okay. Yeah, and as a young woman, your reputation for the next, however long, like people do have long memories, and if you want to be taken seriously, I just never wanted my reputation to be the drunk one, the silly one. Like, don't get me wrong, outside of work, I am absolutely, was then, still am, the person lining up the shots and there for a good time. Love a social function. But at work, for me, I liked having that separation around, I wanted to be respected. I was there professionally. I do have that. Maybe this is a Gen X thing about the separation between work and life, but I was really seeing that early on. I was like, I don't want to be that person.
Yeah, but I also think that talks to double standards within men and women in the workplace, right? Like the fact that if a dude had arsed up and had ended up with his pants around his ankle, everyone would be like, oh, Steve got pissed at the party. And that would have been the end of it. And I'd love to say that it's better now, but I can't, I don't think I can confidently say that it's better for young women in an organisation. And I think that adds to another level of complexity in the conversation is, consent and alcohol and making sure that everyone is consenting in a situation where inhibitions have been lowered by substances, and how that then also implicates the business that you're working for, and especially if it's within premises or at an organisation function. There's so many factors to consider, and not many of them are considered at the time.
Yeah, and I think that's the point, right? It's those, if you're going to be social. If you want to have a few drinks, have a few drinks. Just make a conscious choice about how you want to behave in work environments, because the repercussions unfairly seem to be greater for women.
Yeah.
And, you know, in that same breath where I talk about the situation with her, what that also showed me is, so it meant that I didn't really drink much at work functions, which I'm really glad about, because I went to a sales conference a few years later, just before I moved to Australia, and we all had a few drinks, and a few went into town. Some people got really drunk. Some of us just stuck to our limit and had a good time anyway. And I remember being back in my hotel room, and, you know, one of the sales reps, who was probably 20 years older than me at the time, came and knocked on my hotel room door and wanted to come in.
Oh, no.
And, you know...
How old were you?
Like 23.
Oh, God. What did you do?
Thankfully, said, no, I'm going to sleep. It's bloody late. but I do think if I had been boozed, I could have quite innocently thought they wanted to have a chat, or they needed something, or were in trouble, or...
Was that person also sort of higher level than you within the organisation?
I was working in a different division, so not really,
directly.
but had been there for longer, so certainly more influential, knew more people.
And I think that brings up another thing, right, is the power dynamics within it, and how doesn't matter whether what gender you are, if you are in a position of power above that other person in this relationship, it instantly brings up power dynamics, and you have to question where you sit within that, whether you are the person that has the power or the person that doesn't have the power, and how that is affecting the situation as well.
Yeah, I've had that situation personally. I did date a colleague.
Yes.
In Australia. And I guess probably similar to your friends, him and I were able to have a really good conversation about what it meant, and I was in a position more senior than him, and we worked in very different teams. He was in the tech team, and we just kind of went into it with our eyes open, and we had really clear boundaries about how we behaved at work and what that meant, and it was great. And the big conversation we needed to have quite early on, I think, to help make it easy was, if this doesn't work out, how are we going to behave at work? Because you're going to run into each other at making a coffee or in the lift.
Oh, yeah. It's always like those tiny little interactions where you have to figure out what you would normally do in that situation, but you are anything but normal in those situations. And it's like, how do you, ask someone to politely move away from the cutlery drawer in the kitchen when you've broken up with them a week ago?
Yeah. And no one wants to run into the ex, but when you work together, you are guaranteed to run into them probably every day. You might even have to sit opposite them and look at them every day. And I think we just go into these things with, without any care, lots of abandon, lots of hopeful optimism that she'll be right, it'll be great. And I hope it is great for all of you. But if it's not...
Have a plan.
Have a plan.
Just have a plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is, I think I could potentially at this point be coming off as don't do it. Fuck that. No, absolutely. If you are in a situation where the power is balanced, you're both aware of what's going on, and you're on the same page, and you're communicating well, and you have full understanding of how that this will adhere to policies within your organization, and you can do it safely and it's all consensual, fucking go for it. Hot as hell, do it. That's great. But just make sure that you've got an exit strategy.
Yeah, and I think the key point you made there, Kels, is have a conversation about it. So both of you have got to be on the same page about, is this a casual hookup? Are you dating? Really, it seems really silly. And I must say, in my experience, women are much better at having these conversations than men, generalizing, sweeping stereotypes, all of that, I know. Guys really do so what are we? It's typically us. And I do think in this context, it's really important to have that conversation, because they might be thinking, it's just a casual thing, and you're one of 3 women from work they're dating, which, again, you're going to have to work with all of those people.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God. Oh.
Yeah. Which it could happen, right?
Yeah, totally. And I think, if you're absolutely fine with it, obviously I am not in this hypothetical situation because of my response just then. But if you're okay with it, then fine. But if they cannot have a conversation, if the person or the partner, whoever you are dating within your organisation, if they cannot have a conversation with you beforehand, how the hell are they going to have a conversation with you after, or if it goes tits up?
Yes.
So it's more about making sure that you go into the situation fully informed, on the same page, fully consensual, and then have the fucking time of your life. Go for gold. Maybe don't do it on the photocopier though, because like that's where you can probably get in trouble. Like, maybe you can get away with a stationary cupboard, but even then it's a bit risky doing it on premises.
Do companies still have stationery? Aren't we paperless these days?
I don't know. I was just...
I got...
I'm not speaking from any experience
Are
here,
you
Melissa.
sure?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
No, there's generally no experience here. There's just like a lot of like Grey's Anatomy.
Okay, because I have speaking of hospitals, weird interjection when you talked about the photocopier. Could not stop laughing when my cousin, who's a nurse, said that they use faxes.
What?
Yeah.
Nursing still uses faxes.
Like, quite a big GP clinic in Christchurch, and the several she's worked at, very common to fax things. I was like, it's 2022. So, if you work in healthcare, don't have sex on the fax machine either.
Yeah, I mean, don't do that. Maybe just don't have sex on any machinery, and then bring up the Carlton story. Maybe just close the curtains. Yeah, we've got some very practical advice around communication and being on the same page, but also like just don't have sex in the office is probably the best way to put it.
Yeah, and I think too, also just keep your little peepers open about if you're really into the person, or whether the girl you're seeing or the guy you're seeing from work is just, you feel like they're amazing because there's proximity. You spend 8 hours a day with each other side by side if you're working in a traditional office environment, and you're talking about the same things because you're in the same echo chamber. And so it's a good sense check to, if you're having a workplace romance and you think there's more to it, see what it's like, see what the conversation is like outside of the work stuff, because that affinity that you have and that proximity, it's all about that context. If you worked in another organisation, would this person still be the one you want to chat to at the end of the day? Are they the one you want to show off to your friends and family at the weekend? Like,
and also like, can you two have a disagreement at work and then be able to leave it at work and not bring it home is another good litmus test as well.
Yeah, that how you work at work, how you work together professionally while you're seeing each other and you're not all lovey-dovey and ooey-gooey and making you run around your vom, as well as when you're hating the shit out of each other because you had that massive fight the night before because they did not call you when they said they would.
Yeah. Basically, you're just going to be a real good actor.
Yeah, and boundaries, like a definitive line, like at work we're like this, outside of work we're like that. Unless you work for a startup and everyone's, the culture is no boundaries, let's rock it up, just do whatever feels good. Whatever, like if the culture dictates that it's okay, that's fine. I guess it's not that common. It's more likely that it would kind of be frowned upon. If it's not, like Kels was saying, it may not be stated in a policy, but I can't imagine sitting in a workplace where there's, romantic undertones and flirty looks across the table is going to be tolerated.
Yeah. Also, be considerate of your colleague. Or like your other colleagues, like the people around you, do not want to see you sitting in a meeting room playing footsies with each other. Please do not do that.
Although I did want to talk about a really famous workplace romance that I didn't realise until I listened to her book, which was Michelle and Barack Obama.
No.
Yeah,
Tell me.
She was at a big law firm and had the job of being a mentor to this new rock star intern, and it was Barack, and they... Seriously.
No, she was his boss.
Yeah, no, she wasn't his boss. They are both very clear to state there was no direct line. She was not his direct line manager.
Oh, that would have been so much more scandalous, and I was here for it.
Yeah, no, she was his mentor. And that's how their relationship started.
So many innuendos.
Yeah.
That just ran through my head, but yes, continue.
And if you have not listened or read her book, I highly recommend it. That woman is a class act on every level. And they kind of did all the things we said here about getting really clear about transitioning their friendship in work to outside of work, being friends outside of work first, defining boundaries. So they were very much on the relationship track. I can't imagine either of them were on the hookup. We saw each other on Tinder track. So this is probably not the whole should you sleep with your colleagues. This is,
But also, like, imagine Barack Obama on Tinder. Actually, he's more of a Hinge guy, let's be fair.
Well, what was I loved that this is probably my favourite part of the book so far, is he's got to head back to the East Coast and she's in Chicago, and she must have said something to him about writing letters to keep the romance alive, and he said, I'm not much of a letter writer, and she said, well, you better be, because Danny down the street's asked to take me out.
Oh, girl.
Yeah, she has the most amazing way of, letting someone know what she expects.
Incredible.
I hope I've quoted her right there. But if you haven't listened to the book, I highly recommend it. You just fall in love with the two of them. They're just gorgeous.
Amazing. Well, I mean, as a wrap up, make sure that you communicate, make sure it's consensual, make sure that you go into it with eyes wide open, you know the policies within your organisation, and you are making choices for you. I mean, we've touched on it, but we haven't dived deep into, the implications of power dynamics and non-consensual sexual advances within the organisation, within the workplace as well. And, that is a topic that we want to maybe touch on later. But, as long as you're going into it with your eyes open, everyone's on the same page, and you're all communicating in the best way possible, fucking go for gold and get yours. Get it, girl.
Get it twice.
Right. To end us this week, what tweet have you got for us, Melissa?
Oh, actually, this is. I'm going to segue this by saying, also make sure you use protection, because I've had a bit of a kid theme today, because my tweet is from a lady called Mandy Shaw up in Auckland, and she says, just a reminder that a quiet toddler is almost always up to no good, and there's a cute picture of a wee kid sitting there with a tub of Olivio olive oil margarine spread rubbed all over his legs.
Moisturising.
Yes.
Hey, look, skincare doesn't have to be expensive. Okay, and then for my TikTok this week, we've already talked about how the relationships in an organisation can be salacious, and that's really the only kind of gossip and scandal that I want to be hearing in a workplace. So this TikTok's kind of related to it.
Do I know what's going on half of the time? No. Do I want to know what's going on half the time? Only if it's hot gossip and it has nothing to do with me. Yeah, I do.
And that's pretty much how I live my life at work, yeah. So thank you again for listening into the Careering podcast. We are releasing regular episodes wherever you get your podcasts, so please remember to subscribe, rate us 5 stars, and like us on all of the channels. We love questions, we love stories, topic ideas, anything, send them through to us any way you'd like. Again, we're on all of those channels. And then until next time, get out there, back yourself, and enjoy some consensual, power-balanced sex.